I'm going to read the foreword to my book, Following My Thumb, A Decade of Unabashed Wanderlust, just published, available on Amazon.com and perhaps in your local bookstore. This is a collection of 26 travel stories of mine from around the world, starting in 1990, going to Europe, Western U.S., Alaska, Hawaii, and India. But the foreword of this book takes place earlier, and it describes my first experiences of hitchhiking when I was literally, well, I'll read it and that'll explain it better, but when I was a kid, then I lived on a dirt road, and the bus dropped me off, and then I would have to walk quite a long ways up that dirt road. Now here's the cool thing, is that I'm on that dirt road right now. This is where I was raised. It's been literally 25 years since I've lived here. I've been back. I was actually here a couple years ago because my mom lives in another town nearby. But it's a nice hot sunny day here in June, and I thought I'd go on a little road trip and sort of go back in the past to my childhood a little bit. So I am currently at the spot where this section of the book, the foreword, actually takes place. Foreword, the beginnings of a hitchhiker. I first started hitchhiking when I was just 8 or 9 years old. My parents were hippies in the 70s and 80s, and we lived up a dirt road, this dirt road, outside a small town in rural Northern California. The school bus would take me 5 miles up a winding road and then drop me off at the bottom of our dusty dirt road. From there it was a 1.5 mile walk to our big cabin in the middle of the woods. For my short legs, following a long day at school, this seemed at times like an impossible trek. But of course my dad thought it would build character, and 30 years later, I'll admit it probably did, and my whimpering went unheeded. So what if there were a few hills to climb after a long day at school? When my dad was a kid, he'd biked halfway across Los Angeles to go to a school outside of his district because he played trumpet in their band. At least I didn't have to dodge noisy city traffic and breathe exhaust fumes along the way, and then try to play a trumpet in tune. I was lucky to have clean mountain air to breathe and the soothing sounds of nature to accompany my stroll. So I trudged reluctantly home each day, creating little mind games to help keep me going. I pretend I was on an explorer's expedition in a foreign land, searching for some kind of treasure. Maybe a coin or a shiny hubcap or even a Native American arrowhead. Or else I would pick a spot away down the road and tell myself that all I had to do was make it that far. When I'd made it to that spot, I would pick a spot down the road again and keep going, one short boyish step at a time. One day, while walking home with my head down, halfway there and wondering if I was really going to make it this time, or maybe end up curling up in the woods to take a nap, a car came along and pulled up beside me. Occasionally I would get a ride if my mom or dad happened to be coming home from work, or if one of our immediate neighbors cruised by. I lifted my head in expectation as the man rolled down his passenger window. "Hey kid, you look beat. You want a ride? I'm going on up the road to see Richard." I didn't recognize him. He wasn't one of our neighbors or anyone I'd seen before. I considered hopping in, but then remembered my mom's caution about accepting rides from strangers. Well, he knew someone I knew. Richard was a friend of my dad's. But he was still technically a stranger, if a friendly one. No thanks, I said. I'm not going much further. Only another long, hot, blistering mile or so. "All right, kiddo, no problem. See you later." He continued down the road, leaving me in a cloud of dust. This set me to thinking. I was really tired of walking all the way home every day after school. A 1/4 mile would have been fine. Down our long driveway, after a ride up the road, was no problem at all. But 1.5 miles felt, at that moment at least, like cruel and unusual punishment. I wasn't going to do it. I wanted a ride, and I was willing to wait for it. I had a good book in my school backpack, so I sat down under a tree beside the road and started reading. It was warm and sunny, and I was immediately happy not to be walking. I loved reading, so suddenly I was doing something that I loved rather than hated. Why hadn't I thought of this earlier? I felt like that guy must have when he invented shoelaces. Something so simple and obvious, yet brilliantly useful. Maybe this wouldn't make me rich, but it would definitely improve my ease of living. I reasoned that I could accept a ride from any person or car I recognized, and thus wasn't a complete stranger. Expanding the criterion beyond our immediate neighbors and family friends opened up the possibilities, since dozens of people lived on our road, and my family knew most of them to some degree or another. After reading for a half hour or so, a rusty old Toyota station wagon came clunking along towards me, trailed by the usual roiling cloud of dust. I recognized the car, although I wasn't quite sure who owned it, so I stood up and stuck out my thumb, just like I'd seen older guys doing while on family road trips. The car pulled over. It was a neighbor who lived a little ways past us. His was a familiar face, good enough. I hopped in and got a ride the rest of the way to the top of our driveway. The following day, after the bus had dropped me off, I walked a 1/4 mile up the gravel road, sat down in a sunny patch of grass, and started reading. When the first familiar car came along, I didn't even get up. I just looked up from my book and held my thumb up high. The car pulled over. It was official. I was a hitchhiker. That's the foreword to Following My Thumb.